Is Mortend Lund. He's a self-described neoclassical serial entrepreneur. He's founded over 80 high-tech profile companies, including Skype. And he strongly believes that he can actually change any industry via technology, hard work, the right people, and what I like most about it is just a bit of cash. So ladies and gentlemen, Mortend Lund.
So good evening, good afternoon. I'm very proud to be invited here, of course. I always start out a little nervous, but it will probably break. So first of all, I'm here I get invited to talk about my failures because it seems to be interesting, and it's probably also because it's a lot of the nature of startups and this whole new development of digital services. First of all, I would like you to take out your phone and change to the other network here. If you can see the Wi-Fi network, where is that? Yeah, you can go on the OpenXO. There's an OpenXO Wi-Fi network. So if you go on there, it will ask you to, instead of connecting with these crazy codes, you should be able to connect with Facebook and in that manner get into the network. And that's one of these stupid small things that I've been playing with for a couple of years, that is now going out to 700 hotels all over the world, where you start with a stupid idea, nobody believes in it, and then suddenly you have a tool that makes a lot of sense if you do the right packaging. So you connect like this. Let's hope it works. And then you get into the Hotel XO, we call it here. Let's see if we can get on. Would be nice if it worked. I believe that Facebook is better than a passport because you have the data over time and you have the profile. Of course, this doesn't really work. Let's see. Maybe it's hiding between this. Okay, fuck that. Right here. So basically, I think I said it. Let's see, what direction is this going? So, yeah, you're welcome to follow me on Twitter. So I'm Morten. I'm the father of 4. I'm an inventor and innovator in some ways. I advise a lot of very interesting people. I love marketing. I love jobs, and I love to create jobs, and I love to create sexy jobs and kill boring jobs. And I think that's been part of my whole story. And right now and I'm spending most of my time on, and why I'm getting more and more weird, is that we're structuring a lot of dead, boring business processes. I founded 120 companies within my different groups. I made tons of money. I was very lucky to support Nicholas and Janus when they started Skype and they had no money, so I paid for their apartments, and I helped a little bit with the marketing because I came from marketing. I sold my first advertising company when I was 26. And I also managed to fuck up everything in 2008 and lose everything I had, which was probably healthy because there should be a rule against kids, 27-year-olds, becoming millionaires. But in 2008 I had very few emails, and I had a lot of time to think. So somehow I also had to make some money. So somehow I got hit by this bug of structured business processes and big data. Mostly because if you actually work in a small or medium-sized company today, it was even worse in 2008, there are no processes that actually work. You end up running your business on the premise of whatever your accountant told you or whatever tool the guy before you implemented. So what we did, and brutally honestly, I mean, this process has been hard, trying to build a financial small conglomerate with nothing but some good ideas, some code, and quite a lot of followers on Twitter. But what we did was looking at innovation as it is, look at a lot of geeks and wackos who would keep coming to me with good ideas from mostly, I think, from reputation. And then looking at this 360 challenge, which it is to do any company, I think it's also important to realize that, I mean, the idea is nothing. We know it's 360. You really have to understand your product. You have to understand how to get the right people. You have to understand how to buy the marketing, how to do the accounting. And I mean, really 360, build a business and also for the first 6 to 12 months, finance an operation that is only a dream. And the problem, of course, is often that the success takes, I mean, overnight success takes about 5 years. When we read about these startups like WhatsApp, whatever, I mean, it's been a long process, but we tend to think that it's something that just happened overnight. So first of all, we take the idea and we take some fairly good ideas. The last 5 years I've only been playing mostly with our own ideas and managing them. But the idea alone is nothing. I mean, it's all about the team. But it's also about the technology, of course, and implementing that, and a long range of processes that have to keep, I mean, you have to keep iterating, and we hear it all the time, these pivoting ideas like Airbnb, they had 4 launch parties because they didn't get it right the first 3 times. And I think then having the pitching skills, I see a lot of really good ideas where the pitching is, I mean, you don't want to listen to this idiot who's talking to himself. So that part of it, of course, we're playing a lot and helping a lot with that. But then there's a million other things like the reshaping the idea, the financing, the team, the prototyping, the law. I mean, there's a lot of legal stuff when you want to build these really global companies. And of course, the funding that you have to be able to manage the first failures. I mean, it's a repetitive cycle, and it's long, and it's where you have to show the stamina to really, I mean, see if you want to go there. And I mean, as it says in the last part, go to 1. You have this probably on a monthly or a quarterly basis where you have to reshape everything. So I've been focusing for the last year on my own stuff with a lot of premises. So I was very lucky to help the guys at TradeShift to start their company in my basement. And I'll come back to that. And then I've been trying to form my own group, a little bit inspired by these humongous Korean groups where they do mostly everything. But if you really start diving in, there are some interesting synergies. I'm not sure I can build a Samsung, but let's see. So I didn't really look at anything new, but I took these facts, which was the formation, and we started discussing and acting on the fact that all these, there is a lot of enterprise marketing deals, and what I mean with that, there's a lot of distribution, advertising to do inside all these new software as a service products. I mean, the guy in here who would be able to invent a product that he could get into a company, I mean, a product like Dropbox, and upsell in there. If Dropbox would promote it, I mean, he would be selling something inside a user base who's already having their credit card running for, I think, 25% of the user base. So these enterprise marketing deals, we've been looking a lot at. We've been looking a lot at all this digital media, because when we're having this paradigm change to Google, where everybody, even a fellow board member in one of our very interesting companies, he's from UPS. He cut out one of the meetings and said, "Why are you calling all these? Why are you calling all these leads? Why don't you just buy them CPA on Google?" That's where we are. I mean, we're in a world where the biggest businesses in the world, they're just using Google as their sales force, as the media for driving leads. But there is also some interesting changes in this paradigm, because very soon you'll also have to consider to buy Facebook advertising. You'll have to buy something, especially in the verticals of LinkedIn and Twitter if you're in the enterprise software. So we also looked at at the fact that a lot of businesses are becoming digital. And not only, I mean, are we able to send emails to each other, but we're buying products that doesn't exist outside our computer. And if you look at the smaller startups now, there's been different predictions, but I mean, even the smallest startups, they have to use around $2,000–3,000 a year on software as a service stuff that they need a A/B testing tool, they need some storage, they need, of course, all their Amazon services. I mean, it's real business. It's not just open source crap. And then on top of that, of course, we've been looking a lot into, when you want to do enterprise stuff, you have to look at the mega trends, and Facebook is probably the biggest mega trend ever. And we have seen very few initiatives for businesses to go in to do enterprise solutions inside Facebook, because there's some idiot in the top of the organization who says that he don't want to be on Facebook. Then the rest of the company can't use Facebook, which is often a little bit stupid, because it's a pretty good authentication tool to see that people really are who they are. I mean, how many in here have borrowed their Facebook account to someone else within the last month? I mean, you don't give your Facebook password to anyone. It's not like in the old days where you just borrowed your email for somebody to register a piece of software, back when an app was an exe file. Facebook is changing the paradigm in parallel with software as a service becoming, tools that really reacts and modifies themselves compared to whatever we log in with. If we log in with Facebook or we log in with LinkedIn, it's easier. I mean, it is stupid to build a tool without this capability. So of course also with the fact that social media is everywhere, and you have a quite, in my world, lame company like Yammer going to become a real player. I mean, it looked lame when you look at it from the outside, but it kind of changed. The paradigm changed a little bit when you see how much information, if you can control it, that can be shared in an organization, instead of everybody just having their own little silo and ensuring that nobody, touches their budget or whatever. So social media to me is also everything, because you will probably have discovered already some really nifty services, like the one I wanted to show you now with our Wi-Fi login. So whenever you come to a hotel and you're using our Wi-Fi login, then suddenly you'll also see who's in the hotel that you know, or who's in the hotel that you know somebody who knows. And the same with the reviews, the same with all of this stuff. So social media it's inside. One of the best services to me is TripAdvisor. It's amazing to go to Africa. I was in Zimbabwe with my kids, and I mean, you can log directly into TripAdvisor. You will know with certain validation what restaurants are worth eating at. It will not kill your stomach, and you will have a friend of a friend who did a review. I mean, it never happened before in history, and that's what I mean with social media being totally integrated to everything. And then I think it's important to see when we're trying to do these companies that, and again, we're reshaping and doing all of it. So we were super lucky to be able to create an extremely high market value and deal value on the companies that we've been setting up. It's still dead boring enterprise software, but it seems to work. So I'm also the chairman of Capital 8, where we've been, I'll come back to that, been trying to use the big data. But right now we're trying to execute all these plans, and the bigger vision behind what we're trying to set up here, and it's getting a little geeky, but I think that's where the big business is that, yeah, we have to warn that how boring and complex it is. I mean, it's software as a service, it's big data, we all know big data, and it's social. But if you look at these, if you take these three things or three paradigms and you're able to, and smart enough to put it into the day-to-day software, it's like Tradeshift. I mean, it's an invoicing service. It doesn't get more boring. But then it's also kind of vital for any company to have an invoicing tool, both sending invoices and receiving invoices, that is pretty accurate. And we don't do business with each other unless we send invoices. So big data or huge data will be part of everything, but we'll also need to have an understanding, even from a business management point of view, of these application programming interfaces, which is, we're probably getting there now to 20-30% of the potential already, how to integrate weird shit on both sides. But even though you have an API, some people just, well, we can suck the data. You also need a really good algorithm to kind of play with this data, or another representation layer where you can actually take crazy, weird data from many sources where you can access the data through the APIs and then do new services. And yeah, connecting anything with any service is actually possible, especially if we're talking about the Internet of Things. I mean, there's a reason that Google bought this little weird thing on the walls in the US called Nest. I mean, then they will not only have, all our data from the Android phones and where we are, read our emails. They also know the temperature in our home and whether there's a fire, and they also know with the map, and here Google is using a little bit of this. So whenever you see that there is a line, especially in New York, it's cool. So if you use the Google map, you will see where there's a line, and people are stuck in traffic because they just look at the phones. If there's more than 50 phones who doesn't move, there's probably a blocking in the traffic. Pretty sexy stuff, if you look at it that way. But pretty interesting stuff as a consumer, but you don't think about how it actually gets done. It's just different things talking to each other via either a closed loop or APIs. So the big play, and we were lucky to be part of, is of course with Tradeshift, and it was very nice yesterday that we were able to announce that we raised $75 million in the third round of financing in the most boring company in the world. But that's probably because we add a lot of value. So another thing that I've been spending a lot of time on, which I've unfortunately fucked up, is trying to deal with the infrastructure behind flight search. But yeah, we for different reasons didn't manage to agree in the shareholder group to carry on, but we actually managed to build a full-fledged search engine so we would be able to serve you nice offers on travel in your email. Because if you think about it, you don't get personalized travel offers. That's because the industry is still locked up with Amadeus and Sabre, charging the airlines $1 per search. Imagine how fantastic business Google would have if they could charge $1 per search. That's the old world, and there's so much room to really disrupt these huge industries because they're just fucking each other and you guys. So yeah, back to this Wi-Fi, where we also want to connect the dots between this weird box and the fiber in your home or whatever internet you have, connecting it all the way out to your house, to your door lock, to your light control, to everything around it, and then give you the data back. So whether this is an Airbnb cabin or it's a part of a big hotel chain, we'd be able to serve you extremely interesting data. And then coming back to Capital 8, So with Capital 8, we found a way to basically help the small businesses. I mean, it's super cool if you can play with technology and at the same time become a little bit of Robin Hood. But what happened in the UK was we were super lucky with Tradeshift to win the NHS as a client. So basically, if you want to send an invoice to the British healthcare system, you have to use Tradeshift. It will be by law. So you have to send your invoice with Tradeshift to get your money. And then, of course, with Tradeshift, we made it all free because it's sometimes a pretty good way to get market share. And then when I get your acknowledgement that the NHS has approved your invoice, then we will be able to offer your payment instantly instead of waiting 60 days. So a dead boring financial play with a big impact for the small and medium-sized British businesses who can't go to the bank, but maybe we can finance their next salary payout. So, of course, with the name of this conference, it's interesting to see what's going to happen within 4 years from now. I think, for whatever it's worth, it's interesting to think about that the mobile broadband and the overall broadband will be so much better, which will definitely change everything. It will not only work sometimes. I think most of you guys have tried. Suddenly you are in a perfect spot with not too many phones, and you try the real 50 megabit download on your phone. Problem is, of course, the phone can't really take it, but it becomes a really good experience. That will probably be all over very soon, that you have these experiences. Then I think we will be data hostages. I tried sometimes already where I don't want to give away, I don't want to log in with Facebook, I don't want to connect to services, then they have no value. So if we don't have our data and we don't want to share it, sometimes quite a lot will end up being data hostages, and there will be a lot of services that will be more or less forced to use. But we have to give our data away in that way. The data hostage, to actually get into any service, a lot of the services, you'll have to just pump your data in the direction. That's probably a little scary. Then I think it's pretty clear that this whole NSA thing was not, it was not new to me. I've been working with the telcos through back when we did Skype, and I've been working with a lot of governments who wants access to the data we suddenly saw NSA had access to. But on the other hand, it also saved a lot of crazy people from blowing up themselves, that somebody has access to this. It's just a little bit weird when we start to understand what's happening. And of course the Chinese guys, they're probably hacking NSA. so they also have access to everything. And then I think that we will have more and much more, but not perfectly, again, structured data. Because think about how, many of you will be working in a company where you probably can't get the data you want because it's not structured. They're not using the same reporting tools in different departments. There's no way to do the really interesting prediction calculations. There's no way for a lot of departments to talk to each other, so sometimes you end up with one of the nightmares of corporates, which is that you have to get Accenture or some group in to do a big project and try to change your company. But it will be much better because we'll be using a lot of tools that will have these open APIs, or they will have structured formats in their own data storage. Then I think for the entrepreneurs, the really interesting thing is that money might still be cheap for a little while. And what do I mean by that? Well, nobody thinks about, there's a lot of talk about these tech stocks being too expensive, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's a personal, everybody has their own opinion. But what I see from using a lot of venture capital and using a lot of capital from different sources, I see that people with a lot of money, they get more and more interested. And I think the best thing that happened for startups in many years was that WhatsApp was bought by Zuckerberg. Because if you have $1 billion and you get 0.2, 0.5% interest, that's not enough to pay or cost a couple of houses, the 3, 4, 5 kids, all kind of shit that rich people have. So a lot of these people who are really rich, they'll have to start eating from their capital. Then most of them probably made the money themselves or knew how to do it. So they'll start to take 2, 3, 4, 5% of their money and throw it into something that could be a WhatsApp. Because, they're for sure not going to get any interest in the bank. And that's probably the best thing that happened for entrepreneurs in a very, very long time. So if we can keep the interest, if the economy can, survive, and the interest rate will be this low, I think we're going to see crazy amounts of money being thrown at startups. And then we can always discuss whether it's smart or not smart. Companies that money is going, that all the money is going to. But I just see it as a crazy, interesting thing, and I see crazy amounts of capital being now injected into the whole startup scene in the hunt of some kind of return. As I said, this is probably the best thing. And overall, I think, the advice that I'm trying to give, even though I'm only doing really boring enterprise software now, and there's no sexy stuff like Skype and Kazaa and all the crazy stuff we did before, it's of course, just do it. And then remember that a leader without followers is just a guy taking a walk. There's a lot of idiots who shouldn't run a company. And I think that's really important to keep that. So, that was my 50 cents. Thank you very much.